Hello, Rich here, a sports therapist from the Physio channel, back for our second tendon review with Daniel Lawrence, where we will be discussing isometrics. Isometrics have become a recommended treatment for all tendinopathies, but what is this based on, and do they work in practice? So how did we arrive at the point where isometrics are so widely recommended and accepted?
Yes, well, it all started with the Alfredson's eccentric loading protocol for the Achilles tendon, which, while initially very promising, needed adapting for different patient subgroups, and there remained a need for a more universal loading program that could help reduce pain from basically tendon-related pain.
Sorry to interrupt, but who is Alfredson?
Yeah, okay, so Dr. Alfredson is a Swedish orthopedic surgeon, and in the mid-1990s he suffered from Achilles pain and requested surgery, which was declined for some clinical or work-related reason. To get some surgical intervention, therefore, Alfredson set about trying to actually rupture his own tendon by repeatedly loading it and stretching it off a step. This didn't actually rupture the tendon, and it actually resolved the symptoms, reduced the pain, and undoubtedly increased strength as well. Going back to isometrics, in 2015, Ebony Rio from Australia led a study that identified immediate reduction in pain with patellar tendinopathy following heavy isometric loading for 45 seconds, and this relief actually lasted for about 45 minutes. Now, this was a well-conducted study, but it was only performed on 6 young male volleyball players, and since this study, isometrics have been championed for an increasing amount of different tendon problems.
Is it sensible then to extrapolate these findings so quickly and so widely?
On a purely empirical research basis, no. But many clinicians are finding isometrics helpful, or most importantly, their patients are. So when we consider the research, plus clinical experiences, plus individual patient outcomes, the use of isometrics is much more valid.
Have there been any more recent studies that support or challenge Rio's original 2015 research?
Yes, 2 good studies spring to mind. They were not able to replicate the success of Rio's isometrics for immediate pain relief in the Achilles tendon and the plantar fascia. Seth O'Neill and colleagues replicated the loading protocol used by Rio to test for pain relief when applied to the Achilles tendon, and you can see the varied individual pain responses from the 16 participants on the screen here. It's fair to say that the results were not as universally positive for the Achilles tendinopathy. And then the other study by Henrik Riel looking at plantar fascia pain or plantar heel pain. Henrik Riel and his team from Aalborg University in Denmark compared the immediate pain outcome from 3 different interventions, which were isometrics, isotonics, and walking. These results were again very varied on an individual basis, and for this reason, taking the average reading is not really very helpful because the variability is so broad. In fact, I was drawn to one result in the walking subgroup, whose pain went from 100 down to 0, or near 0. And they must have thought that the researchers were miracle workers, although the walking was barefoot, and we know that that can stimulate strengthening of the foot, which may have been what was happening.
Okay, so should we be recommending isometrics based on all this information?
In my opinion, the short answer is yes, or at least try them. Isometrics are the simplest form of loading, and therefore a good starting point for most people. The research does support something we already know, and that's the fact that every patient is an individual with an individual response to treatment, which includes exercise, of course. So we need to test the individual patient response while they're with you in clinic and at short-term follow-up. One final point I'd like to make: although disappointing that the loading may not reduce acute pain for some people, it still triggers a cellular response which triggers tendon recovery or reduces the likelihood of pathology progression if balanced with activity modification.
Well, thank you, Daniel. For our next tendon review, we will be discussing plyometrics. Is jumping, springing, bounding helpful or harmful to tendons?